Yad itaratas charte suvigya swarat tene brahma hidaya adhikavaye muyanti yatsuraya tejo vari midam yata vinimayo yatrati sargo mishat damna svena sada nirasta kuhakam satyam param dimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisance unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the prime evil cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma pojita kaitravotra paramo nirmatsranam satam Vedyam vastavam atra vastu Shividam tapa trayon mulanam Srimad Bhagvate Mahamuni Krite Kim va parir Ishvaraha Sadyurhidi avarudyate tra Kriti bihi sususubhistakshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for self-realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam Sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam Pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam Mahur aho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagvatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, verse number 13. sarve te nimishar akshais tam anudruta chetasa viveksanta sneha sambadha vichilas tatra tatraha. All their hearts were melting for him on the pot of attraction. They looked at him without blinking their eyes, and they moved hither and thither in perplexity. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Krishna is naturally attractive for all living beings because he is the chief eternal amongst all eternals. He alone is the maintainer of the many eternals. This is stated in the Katha Upanishad. And thus one can obtain permanent peace and prosperity by revival of one's eternal relation with him, not forgotten under the spell of Maya. One's eternal relationship with him, now forgotten under the spell of Maya, the illusory energy of the Lord. Once this relation is slightly revived, the conditioned soul at once becomes freed from the illusion of material energy and becomes mad after the association of the Lord. This association is made possible not only by personal contact with the Lord, but also by association with his name, fame, form, and quality. Srimad Bhagvatam trains the conditioned soul to this stage of perfection by submissive hearing from the pure devotee. So, this submissive hearing from the pure devotee, that's why we're reading Prabhupada's purports, because his purports are his spiritual ecstasies. He said that. And when we submit ourselves to this process of regular hearing, our original relationship with Krishna reawakens. Our memory is strengthened, and we can remember that we were originally with Krishna. In fact, we're always with Krishna. It's only because of our distraction by Maya that we lose sight of that most precious understanding. And just like when you were born, you were with your mother. Is that right, Prabhu? Were you with my mother when you were born? Can you remember it? Would you deny it? So you see, that's our situation today. We were all with Krishna. We can't remember it, just like we were all with our mother at birth, but we can't remember it. But you can't deny it either, unless you're a fool and a rascal. So here, by chanting Hare Krishna, associating with devotees, and regularly having prasadam, just like Prabhupada said, singing, dancing, and refreshment. This was Lord Chaitanya's special mercy. He made the whole process easy. Singing, dancing, and refreshment. Right? So, the question of submitting to hearing, that's the essence of the whole process. Without this regular hearing, it doesn't work. You can try and chant on your own, and you'll make some progress, definitely. But without the regular association and regular hearing, you won't develop that determination to chant every day and to not become, intimidated by Maya. Well, one word is intimidated. The other is, when butter gets too close to fire, it melts. So you don't want to melt. You don't want to have a meltdown of your fervent desire to know Krishna by seeing some object of sense gratification. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there are many references to hearing. Like, for example, 4th chapter, 26th verse, what does it say? 4th chapter, 26th verse says, Shrotavya dinindriyanye sama magni sujuvati sabdadim vishayan anya indriyagni sujuvati. And this says, some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So in the purport, Prabhupada says, the members of the 4 divisions of human life, namely the brahmachari, the grihastha, the vanaprastha, and sannyasi, are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. Since human life is not meant for our enjoying sense gratification like the animals, the 4 orders of human life are so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. The brahmacharis, or students under the care of a bona fide spiritual master, control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is the basic principle for understanding. There it is right there. Hearing is the basic principle. He didn't say talking is the basic principle for understanding. He didn't say sleeping is the basic principle for understanding. He didn't say doing push-ups is the basic principle for understanding. He said hearing is the basic principle for understanding. And therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Harir Namanakirtanam, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from the vibrations of material sounds, and his hearing is engaged in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Whenever we're sleeping during class, what we should do is stand up. If you don't stand up, you'll continue sleeping. This happened in Prabhupada's time. Whenever a brahmachari would be sleeping in class, someone would go like this, and he'd go, oh, "You're sleeping." No, I'm not sleeping. Yes, you are. Stand up. When someone is sleeping and someone goes like this, why did you do that? You're sleeping. No, I wasn't sleeping. Yes, you are sleeping. We can see it. So if you're sleeping, stand up. Whenever someone is dizzy, if you stand up, the dizziness will go away. Right? Maybe not right away, but as long as you keep standing, it'll go away. So there it says, similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, and meat eating are general tendencies of human society, but a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principles of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society because that is the way for restricted sex life. This restricted, unattached sex life is also a kind of yajna, because the restricted householder sacrifices his general tendency towards sense gratification for higher transcendental life. So this is a beautiful purport. 4th chapter, 26th verse, where he says, hearing is the basic principle for understanding. Well, there are at least 20 other references in the Bhagavad Gita. Let's just take another one. For example, 6th chapter, 35th verse. Prabhupada says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asamsayam Mahabaho Manodur Nigraham Chalam Abhyasena Tukonteya Vairagyena Cha Grihate. Lord Shri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The difficulty of controlling the obstinate mind, as expressed by Arjuna, is accepted by the personality of Godhead. But at the same time, he suggests that by practice and detachment, it is possible. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the supersoul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. You see? The first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. So how many people in the class? Let's see, it's 2, 4, 6. How many initiated devotees are there in Seattle? Yeah. And we only have 6. So what percentage is that? It's less than 6%. So are they hearing something right now? Huh?
Some people do recording class, they see 40%.
What? 40, 50?
And that's why I'm talking about them.
Where's Rakesh? I don't see him. Is he hiding behind it? Okay. The first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws his mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn vairagya, meaning renunciation. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of the mind in spirit. Impersonal spiritual detachment is more difficult than attaching the mind to the activities of Krishna. This is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called parasanubhava, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Similarly, by discharge of devotional service, one feels transcendental satisfaction as the mind becomes detached from material objectives. It is something like curing a disease by expert treatment and appropriate diet. Hearing of the transcendental activities of Lord Krishna is therefore expert treatment for the mad mind, meaning crazy mind. And eating the foodstuff offered to Krishna is the appropriate diet for the suffering patient. This treatment is the process of Krishna consciousness. So here we have 2 wonderful verses in the Bhagavad Gita, but there are at least 18 more where he's emphasizing hearing. Hearing what? Not rat music. I call it rat music. You become a rat by listening to that music. You know, you become a rat with a long tail. But hearing this Bhagavad Gita every morning, hearing from faithful hearing. So in the 13th chapter, 25th verse, also Prabhupada says, Dhyanena atmani pasyanti kechit atmanam anya sakyena yogena karma yogena chapare. Some perceive the supersoul within themselves through meditation, others through the cultivation of knowledge, and still others through working without fruitive desires. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Lord informs Arjuna that the conditioned souls can be divided into two classes as far as man's search for self-realization is concerned. Those who are atheists, agnostics, and skeptics are beyond the sense of spiritual understanding. But there are others who are faithful in their understanding of spiritual life, and they are called introspective devotees, philosophers and workers who have renounced fruitive results. Those who always try to establish the doctrine of monism are also counted among the atheists and agnostics. In other words, only the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are best situated in spiritual understanding because they understand that beyond this material nature are the spiritual world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, Mayavadis don't believe that. That's why it says that those who try to establish the doctrine of monism, that means the Mayavadis, are also counted amongst the atheists and the agnostics. Atheists are people who don't believe in God. Agnostics are people who say, well, we don't have any information, so we don't say there is and we don't say there isn't God, but we don't have the information. Yeah. In other words, only the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are best situated in spiritual understanding because they understand that beyond this material nature are the spiritual world and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is expanded as the Paramatma, the super soul in everyone, the all-pervading Godhead. So Mayavadis don't believe that there's a spiritual world. They just believe that there's Brahman. They don't believe that there are planets in the Brahman. And they don't believe that there are, in other words, Vaikuntha planets. They don't believe there's Goloka Vrindavan with Krishna and the cowherd boys and the cows. They said that's all fairy tales. There's just Brahman. Did you know that? Yeah. That's why they're counted on the same level as atheists and agnostics. Yeah. Of course, there are those who try to understand the Supreme Absolute Truth by cultivation of knowledge, and they can be counted in the class of the faithful. The Sankhya philosophers analyze this material world into 24 elements, and they place the individual soul as the 25th item. When they are able to understand the nature of the individual soul to be transcendental to the material elements, they are able to understand also that above the individual soul there is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the 26th element. Thus, gradually, they also come to the standard of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Those who work without fruitive results are also perfect in their attitude. They are given a chance to advance to the platform of devotional service in Krishna consciousness. Here it is stated that there are some people who are pure in consciousness and who try to find out the supersoul by meditation. And when they discover the supersoul within themselves, they become transcendentally situated. Similarly, there are others who also try to understand the Supreme Soul by cultivation of knowledge, and there are others who cultivate the Hatha Yoga system and who try to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead by childish activities. So he's making fun of the Hatha Yogis. So, wait a minute, let's see. What was I going to say here? Okay, I'm sorry. It was 1326. But that was a good purport. Anyway, 1326 says, again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Purport. This verse is particularly applicable to modern society because in modern society there is practically no education in spiritual matters. Some of the people may appear to be atheistic or agnostic or philosophical, but actually there's no knowledge of philosophy. As for the common man, if he is a good soul, then there is a chance for advancement by hearing. This hearing process is very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing, because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially, according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It is stated, therefore, that all men should take advantage of hearing from realized souls and gradually become able to understand everything. The worship of the Supreme Lord will then undoubtedly take place. Lord Chaitanya has said that in this age, no one needs to change his position, but one should give up the endeavor to understand the absolute truth by speculative reasoning. One should learn to become the servant of those who are in knowledge of the Supreme Lord. If one is fortunate enough to take shelter of a pure devotee, hear from him about self-realization, and follow in his footsteps, one will gradually be elevated to the position of a pure devotee. In this verse, particularly, the process of hearing is strongly recommended, and this is very appropriate. Although the common man is often not as capable as so-called philosophers, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back to Godhead, back to home. So here we have three different references that very emphatically say that the most important thing is regular hearing. Regular hearing, and it should be faithful hearing. You hear with faith. Because if you don't hear with faith, you don't really listen, right? So, and this is explained by Prabhupada. See, he says that when you first read Bhagavad Gita, you must at least theoretically accept that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why does he say that? He says this in an introduction. He says, so according to the statements of Bhagavad Gita, or the statements of Arjuna, the person who's trying to understand Bhagavad Gita, we should at least theoretically accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And with that submissive spirit, we can understand Bhagavad Gita. Unless one reads the Bhagavad Gita in a submissive spirit, it is very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita because it is a great mystery. Now, why does he say submissive spirit? Because you have to at least accept that Krishna is theoretically the Supreme Personality of Godhead when you read Bhagavad Gita. If you don't do that, and you just read it, you won't understand anything. And, of course, if you actually have faith that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then you really understand. But even if you don't have that faith, you should theoretically accept Sri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And with that submissive spirit, see, that's a submissive spirit, even theoretically accepting, we can understand Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so any questions? No questions? Yes.
Like again and again, the point comes up how powerful and spiritual everything is in Maya,
Yes.
and how limited the soul is within growth. So
Limited, what do you mean by limited? Because
power and power counting.
Maya is only as strong as you are weak.
I guess it kind of goes to my question. So how much, so once the soul decides to go towards Krishna, how much of the progress is based on the individual ability versus mercy?
Like, remember yesterday or the day before I was saying, we don't understand what our potential is. Prabhupada says the potential of human beings is to be able to control the sun. And I said there's an example of that. Vivaswan is a jiva just like you and me. But he has perfected himself by practicing Krishna consciousness. He's still not liberated yet because he still has a desire to dominate. But he's not on a gross level like us. He's a very elevated individual. So he controls the movement of the sun. So, and then if you look at Narada Muni, he's even above Vivaswan because he's liberated and he's always preaching. So the whole idea is this: if you have any plans to find some situation in the material world where you'll be happy and have, let's say, sustained sense gratification, you will never understand Krishna consciousness with such a desire, with such a thought. If you're convinced that there's no situation in the material world where you will have sustained sense gratification and be happy materially, then you're a candidate for Krishna consciousness. As long as we entertain even one little desire that says, oh, if I could only find a place where I'll be happy with this person or that person, and you're hankering for that, you'll never understand Krishna consciousness. That's
That one picture in the Bhagavad Gita that shows a couple and the husband dancing and the wife's holding the baby and the cow's inside. Again, he's not just showing the blessing.
what is the blessing of the demigods?
Well, Krishna's above them.
Well, that only means that if you lost your desire for sense gratification, you're a brahmahasta, a brahmachari grihasta. Then you can, your wife can hold the baby, you can have your hands up in the air chanting, and the demigods can be showering on you all kinds of benedictions. But as soon as you overstep and start having sense gratification with your wife, instead of having a rain of opulence, you get a rain of stool and urine from the demigods. So, you see, it can be that fast. It can go that fast from one thing to the other. That rain of opulence is only opulence means you only take what you need. You don't overtake. As soon as you overtake, you get into trouble. So everything is limited in Krishna. All sense gratification is limited. What did we read today? We just read that so he says, this is practical because by hearing about Krishna, one becomes automatically attached to the Supreme Spirit. This attachment is called parisanubhava, spiritual satisfaction. It is just like the feeling of satisfaction a hungry man has for every morsel of food he eats. The more one eats while hungry, the more one feels satisfaction and strength. Okay. So, but before that, he says, Krishna suggests practice and detachment. What is that practice? In the present age, no one can observe the strict rules and regulations of placing oneself in a sacred place, focusing the mind on the super soul, restraining the senses and mind, observing celibacy, remaining alone, etc. By practice of Krishna consciousness, however, one engages in 9 types of devotional service to the Lord. The first and foremost of such devotional engagements is hearing about Krishna. This is a very powerful transcendental method for purging the mind of all misgivings. The more one hears about Krishna, the more one becomes enlightened and detached from everything that draws the mind away from Krishna. By detaching the mind from activities not devoted to the Lord, one can very easily learn vairagya. Vairagya means detachment from matter and engagement of mind in spirit. Okay. But before that, we also read, where the heck was that? Marriage on the principle of religion. Okay. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such acts with great restraint. Sex life, intoxication, and meat eating are general tendencies of human society, but a regulated householder does not indulge in the unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage, on the principles of religious life, is therefore current in all civilized human society because that is the way for restricted sex life. This restricted, unattached sex life is also a kind of jagya because the restricted householder sacrifices his general tendency towards sense gratification for a higher transcendental life. So that's the whole point. The householder's got his hands up and is dancing, and his wife has a baby, and the demigods are showering benedictions, and above the demigods is Krishna giving those benedictions. That's only because this is a restricted grihasta, right? And the verse says, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. So we have to follow the rules strictly. Then you get that shower of opulence, right? But what is the opulence? The opulence means you live at home without debt. And you have no anxieties and worries. So you can chant peacefully. You know, you're not chanting anything, I got to pay the mortgage. Oh my God, we don't have enough money to buy, go to the Costco and buy things. And how am I going to put gas in my car, right? No. The whole idea is restriction. But the restriction becomes happy restriction because one is regularly hearing and being reminded of what is most important in life. Okay? Without that restriction, you're not going to be the householder who's got his arms up and dancing. You're going to be the householder who's, carrying 150 pounds of heavy weight, like Atlas, with your head down and the weight's bearing on your neck. You're carrying the burden of the whole world. Right? Okay, we'll stop there. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Thank you for the question. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess just like in my case, over the years I've known, about sadhana and going through the program, you have the desire to, hard to do it, So I'm just trying to understand, is the obstacle my weakness or lack of mercy or lack of sincerity?
No, it's attachment to sense gratification. Like you're working now, you're earning money. You should give a good part of that money to the temple and engage and see how the money is being spent for spreading Krishna consciousness. Be part of it. I mean, you give the money to your wife, right? Oh, it's spent right away, right? Okay, there's food, but maybe she bought, a ring or a necklace or something else, and or maybe she loaned some money to a member of her family, or maybe she, I don't know, did something nonsense with your money, right? You can't say anything though. It's your wife. Can you say anything? So you're working like a donkey, and she's spending the money, right? Now, some of it is legitimate, of course. But you see, that's the whole point. The only reason you're doing that is for sense gratification. If you're not attached to sense gratification, and your wife is like that too, then you both live happily together, and you engage in Krishna consciousness in the home and in the temple. But if you're not on the same page, then it's a constant struggle. And the whole thing is sense gratification. Once you get rid of the sense gratification, you engage the senses in the service of Krishna, everything changes.